This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
All right, we're ready to get started. Quorum is present. Jen, Dylan, and Kim for the committee. Margaret and John are not here. Superintendent Perrone, Principal Pluta. I like the alliteration there. We have one member of staff here. Welcome. So here's the scoop. Dawn is going to be joining us, the business administrator. She called me today and asked to be pushed to the top of the agenda because she has another meeting she has to get to. So when she gets here, we will jump to her and then we'll go back. But I think we might be able to knock something out before she gets here. The minutes are in the packet. They were also in the drive. Does anybody have anything to say about those?
I move that we approve the minutes of September 10th, 2025.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion?
I just spelled your name completely wrong.
So, hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes from September 10th?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, done. Public comment, did you have something you wanted to talk to us about? Okay. Warrants we're doing electronically. I don't have any announcements or correspondence. Do you, Vito?
I do not.
Eliza?
Ooh, principal's report? No, I don't have anything.
Okay, yeah. So again, we will interrupt your report, though, if Dawn gets here, so
That's
that she
fine.
can
I
get
don't
to
think
her
it'll be
next.
that long.
Okay, carry on.
I think when it was put in the packet, you only have the first page. When I looked at it online. You do have the second
It's
page.
front to back,
Okay.
yep.
So our enrollment for October at this point is 478 students, which is 3 more than last month. We did get 2 new students in 4th grade from out of town who moved into town and are now living here in Southampton. And 1 other student, I cannot remember what grade level it was. Some of the things that are happening in the building, we had curriculum night for grade 6 held on Thursday, September 18th. Our open house for grade 6, for pre-K to 5 was on Thursday, September 25th. It was very well attended. It seemed like everybody and their grandparents and their aunt and uncles and everybody was there. It was
Nice.
Fantastic. September 24th was a half day for professional development. Teachers and staff from Norris had the opportunity to collaborate with colleagues from around the district. You might hear more about that in the coming months when we talk about our overall PD plan. We had our fast bridge testing conducted in grades 1 through 6. We will be testing kindergarten in a couple weeks. And so far, the fast bridge results look pretty good. We had less regression this summer than we've had in the last 5 years. Kids are retaining more information, which is fantastic. Mrs. Lukasiewicz has shown her bullying videos to all students in grades 4 through 6. So this is something that she continued doing when she came to Norris, but she has updated the videos so they're a little more current and different in grades 4, 5, and 6. And after the students are watching the videos, they do have a discussion about, what does bullying look like? What do you do if you feel like you're getting bullied, or if you see someone else teasing or bullying somebody, and that they can go to her, or they can go to me, or seek out a staff member. So it's really good to open that door for everyone. Under staff news, Joe Gentile has been hired as a 1-to-1 para in our neurodiversity program. This is a 1-year only position. You will hear more about it during budget time and other places in the agenda. This was through the tuition agreement with Westhampton for a student that is coming to Norris, so it's just for this year. School-wide news, we conducted bus evacuation for all students on Friday, September 12th. Grade 1 visited Fletcher Farm on Tuesday, October 7th. And Walk to School Day has been postponed until tomorrow, October 9th, 2025.
Thank you. If anybody has questions for Lisa, I'm going to ask you to hold them because Dawn has arrived and she's under a time crunch, so I'm going to move to her, and then if you have questions for Lisa, we'll go back to that next.
Thank you. Okay. So, we can start, let's see, what does it say? Budget Finance Team Update. And we can start with the let's see, it would be several pages in. The one that says Southampton Elementary Norris FY25 year-end actuals, general fund. And so what I want to say is that I and my team have been working with Bradley, the town accountant, to reconcile FY25. And so in terms of the largest buckets, these are all reconciled. And what I mean by that is the bottom line, if you just jump to the bottom of the page, the actuals that were spent were in line with the budget, exactly. And that's no coincidence. And I'll walk you through that. Okay, so starting up at the top, the budget that was approved by the school committee was $6,562,43.99, and the actuals were $6,445,623.11 as booked into our general ledger. And I want you to take note of this because this will become important in what I'm going to propose we do for FY26. The way these are loaded into our system, they don't take into account the offsets that the school committee votes. And therefore, the budget is really a little inflated. It's just a little too high in terms of what Eliza really has to spend from the general fund. So we've got the general fund, and then we have all of these special revenue funds. And I'll come back to that, and I'll have it illustrated in a template that will make it clearer. But just going through this, if you were to just look at the reports that we produce and just look at what's in it, because these top lines are at one point what the report said, it would look like Eliza was $116,860 under her budget. But that's not quite right. Then you go to the next column on the left, and you see that there are budget offsets. So you take out those budget offsets on the budget side, and now it looks like Eliza is $814,000 over budget. But you're not done yet. What you have to do is say, oh, well, Southampton has an unusual way of accommodating and accounting for transportation. All of the other schools, the transportation is within the school budget. But for Southampton, the transportation budget is on the municipal side. But we process the invoices. So we have to take these processed invoices away, and then it looks like, oh, well, that's a little better. If you compare the 5631 to the 6058, we're about $426,000 over budget. That is not true, it just looks that way. So then you have to keep going, and you have to do what the school committee voted, which was to charge certain expenses that are on your general fund to these special revenue accounts. So you had identified rural aid as an amount, you had identified circuit breaker as an amount, school choice, etc. And then the select board added $60,000 to our funds available. From free cash, I'll say. I'm not quite sure where it came from, but we had identified that we were going to be nip and tuck with the budget, and so they advanced some additional funds. So the budget went from 5631 to 5691 once you add those the additional funds, and then once you subtract the offsets, you end up at the right where we want to be. One other thing that I want to distribute, just because it will refresh your memory in terms of what you actually voted, and it will show the various special revenue funds.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. We have an extra packet. Do you want a packet
Want to
from
follow
tonight's
along?
stuff?
Or is it just going to cross your eyes?
No,
Okay.
the math part will.
Okay. So here you are. This is what I was talking about.
Oh, that's okay, I'll find it.
Right
Thank you.
there.
Okay,
And this.
perfect, thank you.
So then you'll see that for 25, you voted the full budget being 6562602, and then you said, all right, we're going to have revenue of $931,000, and that 931 is distributed below the last light yellow line, and it shows school tuition in, 309. Foundation reserve grant, preschool revolving, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's how you had identified the special revenue accounts that were going to offset the total budget, bringing the total budget, which was the 6,562, and it brought it down to this 5,631. And then we added the 60,000, so we had 5,691. Are we all up to, with me on that? Okay, so that's the first thing that I want to say about that. And if you then, and we're not going to go over it tonight in detail, but I will another time go over it in detail and provide an analysis. But if you look at the next pages, this comes right off our system. And if you go to page 6, and you see some handwriting there, unfortunately, some of it got cut off, but you'll see you'll see the 6,562, and then we're going to subtract the 931, add the 60, and what got cut off on there is this, where we ended up on that cover sheet, the 5,691, 387. So I just wanted to take you from what our system says, what the general ledger says, and then if you look at the year-to-date actuals and you take the 6,078 and you subtract the 387, then the part that got cut off is, you can do that math and you'll see it's 5,691, 387, 39. So that's what got charged to the general fund. Now, there's one other thing I want to mention about that, and that is, what I'd like you to be able to do is just to understand that you had identified in that sheet I just submitted or distributed, you identified how much we should be taking out of each account. And in fact, we took out, and if you have a pen or pencil to jot this down, because I didn't make copies because our toner stopped. And I couldn't find another toner.
Are we looking at fiscal 25 right now?
Right now, 25.
Yep.
So if you will look at, I'm going to start with, I'm going to start at the bottom with circuit breaker. Circuit breaker, it said take 183, and if you start here, yep, 183. 081 was it? 183, 011. And that is exactly what we took. That's what we applied from circuit breaker. Then it says Title 4A, 10,000. That's not exactly what we took. So it said 10,000. Title 4 came in a little bit higher, so we took 11,218. So, Eliza, we're on Title 4A, if you're on here. And this shows how much was authorized to be taken, the 10,000 for FY25. Does that say 25 or 26?
25.
This says 25.
Yeah,
This says
25,
26.
25. I think it says, still says 10,000, doesn't it? Yeah. And what actually was taken was 11,218, because Title 4 came in a little higher. And we needed to use all of that in order to balance the budget.
And that was everything that was in it, right?
That was everything that was available to be spent. Then on Title II, we said 6,500, and what we took was 10,589. And that's because there were some funds left over from the previous year. Those grants are federal grants. They go on a 27-month cycle. And so we had some money left over, and we were able to use that. How we knew we had money left over is because we worked with Bradley to say, what are the balances? Because Bradley really is the accountant of record for the town. Since he gets all of the revenues in, he validates the expenses that we give him out. And so we knew we had some more, and we knew we needed some more in that account in order to come in where we needed to. Now Title I. And also, if I can say generally speaking, that in 2024, and Vito, you can check me on this, but in 2024, most of the grants that were available to be spent were not spent. You remember that was quite a transition year. And that's okay. That was a transition year, and not everything went off without a hitch. So what we said we were going to spend, the $35,000, we spent $74,272. And what that did is it used up the previous year that had been unspent, and it used up the amount that we had for this year. I know it's confusing, but I'm giving you as much as I have here in terms of what we used.
It's important to understand that the reason we were able to do that is because we had the forensic work, and we were looking back
Right.
and finding unexpended grant dollars that were soon to be sent back.
Right.
If we didn't draw them
So it was
down.
either spend them or have to give it back.
That's right.
It's
And
use
so
it or
I just-
lose it. Yeah, that's a good point, Vito. I should have said that to begin with. We have a certain period to spend these
No, that makes
amounts.
sense.
And we were just, I've said it before, but we were just so lucky to have Carrie Sheehan, whom Vito brought on board, to help us reconcile the grants. So he went back to 2017, he went 2017, 18, 19, 20, all the way through to 24, to find what did we really have to spend. And at some points, and I don't know that Southampton, I'll have to look at that, but at some points, there were some schools who had to turn money back that we got, which was just a sad thing. So then on SPED 262, we said we were going to take 7,500, and we only took 1,172.
Because that's all we had, or because that's all we needed to?
That's all we needed. And when these grants are written, they're written for very specific purposes. And so if we didn't have expenditures within those purposes, then we couldn't use it.
What was that amount one more time?
1,172. And then for SPED 240, and what did we say we were going to spend? We said 130, and what we actually spent was 141,221. And the bulk of that amount was definitely FY24 grant money. So you can use your 25 expenses to use up your 24 grant, and that's what we did, so that we now have money available in 26 to use.
So would you say that, for the most part, now the grants are like current as being what needed to be spent?
Yes.
Spent, and now we're starting like from square one with everything
Yes.
in line and going forward?
Yes. There's a caveat to that I'll ask at the end.
Information first, then I got a question.
Okay, all right. Then we'll go to the REAP grant. Let's see, I may need to use a... You keep telling me you're going to give me an abacus, but until then, I'm using my phone. The next one is the REAP grant. The REAP grant is a federal grant, and when we say 24 and 25, it's what is available to be spent in those years. The federal fiscal year goes on a different cycle, so it's a little confusing. But suffice it to say that we said we were going to spend $56,500 from the 25 grant, and we spent $45,959.
45,959. Okay.
But then we didn't say we were going to spend anything from the 24 grant, but we found that there was money there, and we spent it so we wouldn't lose it, and that was $38,315.
Yeah, and part of the challenge we had with REAP was, unfortunately, in years past, actually the last year, they allowed our administrative rights to lapse for REAP. So we had to go through the process with the state and the DOD and everybody to, not the state, the feds, to get our administrative access again. Once we did, we were able to then use 24 and 25,
Yes.
which was available.
Right. And so then rural, did somebody have a question? No, okay, rural aid, we said we were going to use 117,963, and we used 197,797.
197.
797.
So, because we had some left from a prior year? I don't understand. how
Well,
we did-
yes.
Rural aid is not allowed to be used in that way. It's not a revolving grant. You're supposed to
Right,
spend.
we've talked about that.
Yes, but we got permission, we've been having monthly meetings with Jay Sullivan and his team. He gave us permission to use it with the understanding that as we move forward, we're going to use it appropriately.
Because so much wasn't done in '24, we had the funds, and Vito was able to negotiate with DESI, and
So
they
this-
said we could spend that.
Or beg, however you.
So
Or
the,
beg.
the 85 that we said we're using for fiscal '26, we still have that to use in fiscal '26?
I would say that is not a yes. That we're going to have to talk about, because rural aid is one of those accounts that the state cut. So I do not think that's going to be available.
Okay.
And you'll see that. Some percentage of it will be, but not the full amount. And you'll see that in the next documents that I'm going to distribute.
So that's the letter I sent advocating for if the
Yes.
if there was a supplemental budget. to,
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. Then if we go up to preschool revolving, we said we were going to use 50,000, and we used 92,503. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers the foundation reserve grant, but we said we were going to use 25,000, and in the middle of the year, when we started, like in this winter, when we started to talk about the budget for next year, the direction from the school committee was, please don't use that this year. We need the whole thing for next year, and the whole thing being 120,000. So we used 0 from the foundation reserve grant. And then school choice, we said we were going to use 309,622, and we used 367,351. So what the school committee had advanced or approved was the use of 931,096, and you see that on this sheet here with this total on the bottom. And what we actually used so far to balance the budget was $1,163,408. So that was an increase of $232,312. So, and that was primarily because we had money from '24 that hadn't been used.
Can you say that 1 million number one more time?
Yes, so we used $1,163,408. And that is an increase of about $232,000.
And most of that 232 came from money from '24 that had to
Yes.
be used. Okay, so, all right, so if all of that stuff is current, and we needed all of that to balance
Yes.
fiscal '25, so if everything is now current, does that mean that we now don't have
Yes.
Before we
those
get there,
things?
where's that on that?
Where is, what,
That-
this 931?
On that? No, 1,163,408, because if we
Oh,
add up
okay,
the
that's a good
actuals here,
question.
and we add up the approved amount from the general fund here, those numbers do not match.
All right, that's a good question, Dylan. You don't, nothing gets by you, but we're not trying to put anything by you, so that's the good news. That, the monies that you see listed here are journal entries. So during the year, a lot of expenses were direct charged to those accounts. So at the end of the year, we looked at it and we said, okay, what hasn't been allocated, like for example, the best example is circuit breaker. Nothing had been charged to circuit breaker at all, direct charged. So we had that whole 183 to apply. But if we look at, for example, preschool revolving, where I said we spent 92,503, and you look at this other piece of paper, you'll notice that what was the other piece of paper you were looking at? This one. You'll notice that preschool revolving isn't on here, okay? Because everything had been direct charged. So we didn't have to subtract anymore. We didn't have to subtract any more from the amounts that had been, from the actuals, because they had been direct charged. It is confusing, but I love your question because it's a setup for the next phase of what I'm going to be talking about, which is in 26, this is very confusing, and I don't want to have to do it again. I don't want to have to present it to you. I don't want to have to walk through it again. So we have a way to, my recommendation of how we can record things so that it is more streamlined. It's easier for Elisa or any other stakeholder to see what has been spent. I have a proposal. I've reviewed that proposal with our auditors, and the auditors are for the regionals, but they say it is a better way to do it. Some have said that it's how it was done many years ago. And so right now, I hear your frustration, Dylan, and I'm just as frustrated because it takes so much time to reconcile all of this stuff. So let's go back to that page that you have that says where we are, the summary. And I want to point something else out. So you'll notice that it says, and what I said to begin with, and I'm just going to reiterate, the general fund has been reconciled with Bradley. So we know what the budget was. We know that we know what we've spent in actuals. And now the part, and you'll see it at the bottom, reconciliations are continuing with the special revenue funds between the town accountant and the central office. And so what that means is, I've asked Bradley to look at all of the balances in the account so that the next time I come to the school committee, I can say, okay, remember I told you we used 197,000 of rural aid? This is that's not a good one to pick, but 197 in rural aid, this is how much we have available in rural aid now. So we need to reconcile the balances precisely with Bradley in order to ensure that what we've put in the budget for 26, we have the funds available to do so. I've looked at most of them. Most of them are okay. There are a few that need some deeper dive into looking at them, and I'll tell you which ones those are. The SPED 240, SPED 262, all of the SPED grants, and I may have mentioned this last time to somebody, but all of the SPED grants are federal grants, and they need to be identified separately on your books, and they haven't been. They have not been segregated, and so we have to go in and work with Bradley to segregate those funds and to find out how much is in each of those funds. But that is a definite requirement, and it's not the only town who had that issue. Westhampton also didn't have those segregated. And the accountant said, well, we just keep track of it, in one big account. And I said, you can't do that. You are required to track what funds you received for every grant and what you've spent for every grant. And then at the end of a certain period, we have to report back to the feds on that through the state. So that's something that still is ongoing. But I think what I'm going to do is move forward, which I think will get to Dylan's. It's almost like Dylan was an audience plant, really. So I'm going to pass this out.
So for you, because I know you have someplace else you have to be, it's like 6:28, just so you are aware.
6:28. Okay, so that's what I'm going to move forward on this, because this, I think, will be so much easier for everybody to understand next year. Well, actually this year, because now we're in 26. And so if you go back to this sheet, which summarizes what the school committee did for 25 and 26, this letter size sheet, you'll see that the budget that was approved was $6,622,719. And on this long legal size paper, you'll see in the first column of numbers to the left, which has a blue color on it, it says approved FY 2026 budget. So you see those are the same numbers. Then what you're going to see across, all of the lavender color our special revenue funds. They're all of the funds we've just been talking about. They're your grants, your revolving accounts, your reimbursement accounts. Like circuit breaker is neither a grant really nor it's money that we apply for and we get. And so the light purple or the lavender are the individual funds, and the purple, which sort of obscures the title, is the total of the special revenue funds. So what you'll see is in the general fund budget is $5,859,582. And you will see that that ties right out to the town contribution for FY26. When you look at this small sheet and you look at FY26 and you look down here, that's the same number.
Yep.
And so that's the number we need to track. So if we load into our general ledger, you know, that all of those pages of line after line, if we load that budget into the general ledger, then when Eliza's looking at it, when Vito's looking at it, when the school committee is looking at it, when I'm looking at it, we'll see exactly where we stand with the general fund and with the town contribution. And we don't have to do 1,000, I want to say ciphering, but 1,000 calculations in order to figure that out. So that's what we would load into the general fund budget. And we would also load into the special revenue funds these amounts that you have up here. On that, just below the lavender line, those are the offsets that were voted. The 180,038, the 120, the 85. So those were the offsets. Now, let's just look at rural aid. Because if you look at rural aid, when we built the budget back in the spring, winter and spring, we said we were going to use 85,000 because that's roughly what we had used the year before. And that's roughly what we had figured was available. But if you look at the line just below that, and it says 64.6, that's our estimate of what we might receive. That hasn't been communicated by the state yet. So we don't know, but they said we're at least going to get a 25% haircut. And so that's what we think we'll be getting, is $64,600. So that means right off the bat, we're going to be $21,000 shy.
I'm sorry to go backwards.
That's okay.
You didn't really answer my question.
Oh, no. Which was your question? Try it again.
Fiscal year 25, because this matters for fiscal year 26.
That's correct.
Fiscal year 27.
That's correct.
I understand we're charging directly against accounts, but when we establish a budget, and if we look at this in the budget, imagine the rest of the budget was attached to this page.
Yes.
It would have laid out all our expenditures.
Yes.
Which would be what I would consider to be actuals. I understand maybe the accounting term isn't actuals, but I look at what was actually spent when we say we approve a budget.
Yes.
Right? So we really spent in fiscal year 25, not the approved budget of 6,562,602, but that plus approximately $232,000.
Yes. And okay, yes, that's right.
So does that affect, is our fiscal year 26 budget by its very nature now going to be approximately $232,000 in the hole because we have, our expenses were based upon fiscal year 25's budget?
Right.
How does that go forward into 26 and 27? And where is that accounted for in the actuals? Like where was, I understand you're saying money was being charged against it.
All right, so I can give you an example that will help. Trying to think which line code it was. Was it contracted services, SPED contracted services? Was budgeted at $8,000.
Right.
You'll all remember that. The school committee budgeted $8,000.
It was 100.
And it was several hundred thousand, not 100, over 200,000.
Right.
So right there, off the top. So that is a variance to budget that is man-made. Okay? And so that 200,000, or the difference there, is when we went ahead and did the budget for 26, we said, well, 8,000 was ridiculous. What's it really going to be? And we budgeted what we really thought it was going to be.
But for other items, did we base our 26 projection on what we thought 25 was?
We looked at 25, and then we said, well, it's going to be higher than that. And then when we put that budget together, that was not approved. And so then we had to go down to a 4.05% budget, which was approved. And what this will do is it will keep us in line with that budget. When I say this, I mean this right here. It'll keep us in line with that, because we have now said this amount is all that can be spent out of the general fund, and then all of these other amounts are where the funds are coming from. And with the exception of that rural aid, which we found out after the fact is going to be too short, as Elisa is going through her budget, she'll just have to stick to the numbers, and she'll be able to see what this is, or she'll have to come to the school committee to get a line item transfer. Let's say one line's going higher, the other one's going lower. She'll have to come back to the school committee, get a line item transfer, and move forward. So it's an excellent question. It is one that I believe we can control through managing what gets charged to the budget, which wasn't happening last year.
So,
Partly because nobody had any figures that they could rely on.
so you're going to be regularly charging things that should be coming from the special revenue funds. You're going
To the special revenue,
This way, you're
yes.
going to charge each of those things.
Directly,
Instead
yes.
of taking it from the general fund and then trying to move
Right.
stuff around.
And then the other thing, Dylan, that we're going to do, and Jen and Kimberly, is we are going to do it on a prospective basis rather than a retrospective basis. What I'm just telling you in terms of what we spent and where we took things from, that was done after the fact. It was just done in the last couple of months, the last few weeks, the last month. And what we should be doing is saying, we have 180,000 from school choice. We're going to identify where that's coming from. We're going to identify what lines that's going to come from. Now,
Line it's going to cover, which
Which-
lines are going to pull from it.
yes, which lines from the budget are going to be offset by that by that one. Let's go to the Title II grant, because that, let me just see. Let's go to, I want to see let's go to Circuit Breaker. Circuit Breaker, so it's almost to the end, 3 lavenders from the end. It's $155,599. At the very top, that's how much the school committee had said we needed to put towards the budget. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow that down, and we're going to go over to the line code, and it's going to say, I think it should, if I follow it over correctly, it should be programs out of district. So we're only going to charge that amount to that grant. And we'll be able to, every month you'll get a report that will say, not only will you get a report for the general fund, but you'll get a report for all of these other accounts, and you'll see where you are. So as Eliza is looking at it, and she's going to say, we don't have the funds for that. We're getting too close. We're 4 months through the year, and we've already spent 8 months worth of expenses, and so we're going to have to cut back. That is how you would be able to better manage your budget. Now, I want to say one other thing, because Dylan, you pointed out, and as did Kim, the reality of what was spent in '25. It was significantly more than what had been approved. And some of it was because what had been approved was inadvertently short on the sped side, and those expenses had to be incurred no matter what was budgeted, because we had to spend sped, as I understand it, by law, Vito, correct?
What's that? Sorry. Spend sped?
Yeah, we have to spend sped. Well, we couldn't say, oh, only 8,000 was budgeted, so you can only spend 8,000.
Oh, right.
You have to spend whatever the IEPs generate.
Yep.
So, I hate to add fuel to the fire, but once we get done looking at the special revenue accounts, we'll find that there was additional amounts. So for example, not reflected on your authorization was ARPA money. So ARPA money went to underwrite some of the budget as well, $33,000. So that's an additional $33,000 that was spent. That's not going to be reflected on your general fund because it was charged to the municipal, because it was funded by the municipal ARPA, covered by municipal ARPA. You following me on that?
I understand it.
Yeah.
I follow you on it. I think my frustration lies with a couple things. I'm not pointing this at you. I just understand these documents of, if I look at this and I want to say, how much money did the school spend?
Yes.
Period.
Yep.
Right? That number I can't find.
Yes, you can. You can find it. You can find it. It's just, what we're reporting on is the general fund.
Yep.
If you want to find it, so you saw down here, it says Fund 10,000, that's the
Yep.
general fund.
Gotcha.
Now, all of these others are special revenue funds. They all have their own little page, their own little summary.
Yep.
Now you keep going, and at the very end, because Vito and I did this last night.
We did.
So, because we had the same question.
So what page
It's not
are you
like that, it's not like that was snuck by us.
Right.
Okay? Here's the total. I'm on
Okay.
page
Yep,
45, and it says grand total.
Okay.
What was spent for the grand total is $7,442,000.
Is that $232,000 over the,
No, it's more than that.
yes, it is.
It's more than that. So I didn't distribute this. I want to show you what I was reading from. I didn't distribute this because I didn't want you to think these were final numbers. And I thought you would forget that this says, we still have to reconcile with the town accountant, all right? But I wanted to point out that very fact, that you have spent at least $232,000 over what we had allocated for offsets. In addition, and here's another thing that is a standard way of treating it, but if you're trying to capture all of the costs to run your school, there's something missing here, and that's the cafeteria. The cafeteria has a revolving fund. The cafeteria dollars don't show up either, do not show up in the budget. So they're not an offset per se because they're not budgeted for. They're kind of off in this nebulous area. And I would recommend that we budget for those and then offset for them. So that if you're trying to capture what it costs the school, what it costs to run the school, it would be all of your salaries, all of your sped expenses, all of your building maintenance, all of your supplies, and your food services, and your custodial, all of that. And then you would have offsets. So in the past, in every school, the cafeteria revolving fund has never, the expenses haven't been put into the budget per se, and when they get charged, they go directly to that revolving account. So the expenses go in, the revenue goes in, and that there's a surplus. And that, so when I say that you were $232,000 over what you had allocated, then there's another $115,000 that came from the cafeteria revolving fund. But that 115 was never in your budget.
Mm-hmm.
But it is another expense that if you asked me, what does it cost, because you just did, what does it cost to run the school? Then I'm going to tell you the practice here has not been to do that. The practice has been to capture as much as they can, and for those things that are supported through revolving funds, that typically isn't budgeted. And that's how it is in many schools.
But there's also the difference between, so there's that, but there's also, I think, like, how much town meeting approved
Yes.
versus what we ended up spending on the things that we said we were going to spend money on.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, no, I understand it, and I think the question was entirely fair, and I get that. I mean, I've always viewed cafeteria very much as
Its own.
its own thing. It's self-funding, the amount coming out of it should match the amount coming into it, that's all balanced. So I don't really worry about that number, because the number, that's not, it's really more when we're looking at setting a number, for the budgets, and we're looking, and then maybe this is a perfect segue into letting you finish, and I apologize for keep cutting you off, but
No, I want you to understand it and get your
moving
questions in.
forward into 26, where
Yes.
does that leave us? And looking forward to 27, where does that leave us?
Well, I think that, I can't quite answer that question. I do believe that we have cut a lot out of the budget from what it had been. And so now, we are going to have to live within them. And we do have these revenue funds available with the exception of, so we're not going to be able to put 200, we're not going to be able to use 24 again. That was a one-shot deal that we, that grants for 24. That we took 25 expenses and we used them against the 24 grants. That's not going to happen again. So we are going to have to adjust our spending accordingly. And furthermore, when Michael Fredette writes the grants he writes the Title I's, writes the Sped 40, he writes them for specific things. In the past, those have augmented the budget. Now, in order to balance the budget, we have used those funds. So, as I've said to Eliza, and Eliza understands, you can't go and use those funds for something that's not in your budget, which has been the practice. Because in the past, the budget wasn't necessarily balanced using all of these special revenue funds. But as things have gotten tighter, as expenses have grown, people are using these grants to offset the budget. And so if something goes away, it's a problem, just like ESSER. For people who had been balancing their budget using ESSER, and ESSER went away, yes, that's going to have an impact. You're going to have to increase your budget by that amount
Or
the
cut.
following year.
Right.
Or cut your expenses.
I hear you. I'm being respectful of you. I know you have other places to be. Just trying to understand, when we set fiscal year 26, which is an approved budget that we have done, if I look at 25 and I look at the actuals, I can see variances on the right-hand side of that page of what was over.
Yes.
The biggest one being sped services, contracted sped services, which is $174,000.
Right, but we also knew that was wrong, so for fiscal 26,
I
we
understand, we
adjusted.
corrected that, we understand that. So when we look at this, you're saying, we have less money, I understand that. What actually, is there other expenses from 25 that were not captured in the 26 budgets that we now need to be looking at reductions under 26 that were not accounted for when we established the 26?
Yeah, and I think what I need to do is look at that. I'm not going to answer that tonight. I'm going to look at that thoughtfully and do an analysis of it.
Okay.
And I'm going to say,
So I guess just to your point though,
Yeah.
when you said we're looking at reductions, are you saying we are looking at further reductions?
No.
Or the reductions that we made?
the reductions that you made, and trying to capture the budget appropriately so you won't falsely be over
And I think
budget.
that's the key right now, is on this page, right?
Yep.
You're looking at what was approved, 6622719,
Yep,
and then 5859582.
Yep.
That's what's going to be loaded. And that's the difference between what has been happening and what will be current practice moving forward.
That's going to,
Because
go ahead.
Because these lavender lines are special revenue funds that overinflate what Eliza has seen in the past. So she doesn't quite understand exactly how much money she has when she gets a report, because those numbers were added to the 5859582.
Right, except that if we have these special revenues, then
Yes.
those are available to be spent.
Yes, and they are going to be loaded into the budget, just like when you get in the back there and you see those special revenues, you'll notice the budgets are 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Nobody loaded those last year, okay?
so is-
Which was done in '24, just to be clear. So in '24, the people who were here did not load their special revenue accounts in there, so there was no way to track what you were doing.
And this is going to take those out so we can track what has been designated an offset in those special revenue accounts and not include them in what Eliza sees in her general fund.
Right, but she will see, in addition to seeing the general fund, she will see each one of these other reports. And she'll be able to monitor, well, where am I on these? Now, the other thing, and I know I don't have time to go into it in detail, but I do want to come back and go into it if you'll invite me back. And that is,
Happy to have you.
and that is, if you come back, if you, like, I do want to come back. I want to come back because I want you to understand it. And trust me, I'm just as frustrated at times on this. But what I want to be able to say is, okay, let's go to page 1 up here. It's a good example. It's a very good example. You go to page 1, and you see preschool teacher.
Yep.
There was a budget, there was the actual, and it looks like, what on earth did Eliza do to the preschool teacher that she underspent it by $66,000?
Good work.
Don't say that out loud.
And what she actually did is, that was charged to the preschool revolving fund.
Okay.
And you can't quite see that. Next year, what we're gonna do is, we're gonna identify up front how much is going to preschool revolving. So when we put the budget in, it's only gonna be the amount charged to the general fund. And the preschool revolving account will have, I think we charged $92,000 there.
Did that empty that account?
Pardon me?
Did that empty that account?
Oh, it emptied it. It emptied it. And what I want to say about that is, we need to look at preschool a little carefully, because when I'm working with Bradley most recently, it looked like there was a small deficit balance in there. So we have to make sure that we are charging appropriately and covering our costs, if that's what you want to do. If you don't want to cover your costs, then more of it's going to go in the general fund.
Wow, is that an option? Just kidding.
No, but what I'm saying is, if you don't want to cover it through your revolving,
I understand what you're saying.
it will have, more of it would have to go into the general.
So I think you have to go, but,
Yes.
only because you have someplace else to be. But I
Yes.
think that is, part of the reason this has been the way it's been is because there was this whole thing about, you've got all these other funds and you're spending them and you're not telling us what they are. So I think that if we can do a combination of showing what our offsets are.
Yes.
But then having the books that you're keeping, have them separated out, but not hide the fact that we have these special revenue funds and we're
Yes.
going to use them.
Yes,
I think that was the piece that had been missing for a while.
yeah.
So yeah, it's in our budget.
It's just,
Some of it's covered by general fund and some of it's from special revenue. So I think we can, like, keep everybody informed appropriately if we do it that way.
yes.
And the key is getting reports so you can see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Historically, and I don't know how long it's been, you haven't been receiving reports.
It's been at least 3 years, possibly 4, right?
And that is going to be
Roughly.
So
changed.
that's my challenge, is next month to come with the reports for FY '26, where this budget is loaded. I just wanted to make sure that the school committee understood how the budget was going to be loaded and generally agreed to do that. I didn't want to go ahead and load the budget without really bringing it in front of you first. And I've been doing that with every school. Every school so far we've talked with, Williamsburg, Chesterfield, Hampshire Regional, and now you, has agreed to do that. And then we meet with Westhampton next week. And so if we can do that, then we can load the budgets, then we can start producing the reports on a regular basis, and then we will see how are we looking in '26 and where are there some problems. I know one area where there may be a problem already, and that because we've been told by the state that we're going to get a reduction. We're not going to get the same amount that we had in rural aid before. So what we said we were going to do for an offset, we're not going to be able to do if all comes through that way. But I do appreciate the questions for many reasons, because it's clear that you understand the implications of all of this, and in the end, that's all what we're trying to do. Is I want to give you information that you can actually use to make good decisions and make difficult decisions, because there will be difficult decisions as we go forward, because it's getting tighter and tighter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
That was a lot of fun, Dawn.
Yeah, I got more fun.
I know you do. Good luck.
I think we need to give her a dictionary.
It's not the school committee. It's not the school committee.
It's the select
It's the
board.
select board and finance.
Oh, then say hi to Scott. Or as the thing is, wah, wah. All right,
Good luck,
thank you.
Dawn.
right.
We're much nicer than
Thank you.
Southampton.
I know. But you can see how enervating it is. People want to do the right thing.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks,
so,
Don. Appreciate all the hard work, really do.
yeah, John, this was a lot of effort. I appreciate that you were able to be here for this. Thank you. And Vito, I bet you're really happy that you didn't have to be the one trying to explain this.
Well, we went over it last night. I was like, I got this. And then she said today, I think I'm going to come to the meeting. I was like, that's good. It's probably a good call.
The next part is the revolving.
Yeah, we'll deal with that. I understand that. Okay. So if anybody can remember that Eliza made a report a while ago, did anyone have any questions for Eliza on the principal's report? Okay.
And the only thing I wanted to say from my report
Yeah.
is that I was invited to Arlington, and 63 districts were being recognized. 3 of those districts were in R5, and 1 of them was Southampton.
Yay.
And it was around math results and our students hitting outcomes, yes, back before COVID, 2019. And that's one of the goals that the state has set. It's a starting point for us to really show that we're gaining traction and moving forward in a positive way. I just wanted to, congratulate Eliza and her team for those results, and especially the kids and the work that they're doing. So if anybody else has any other questions, I'm glad to answer them, but that's really all I really wanted to focus on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Vito? Okay, chair's report, that's me. So the 5 chairs met with Vito on September 12th. As you know, because you'll be getting the emails about it, we've been trying to get a 5 committees meeting together to do a couple of things, including voting on a job description for the financial analyst accountant position that is in the budget, but it's unfilled because we don't have an approved job description. As of this morning, when I checked, there's still no date set for this meeting. So, yeah. Vito, I have a thought about that I will talk to you about another time.
Awesome.
So then on September 18th, Margaret...
Which committee is the problem?
I think I know, but I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. So it's not us.
Why?
Okay, so on September 18th, Vito and Margaret and I met with the town administrator to discuss the health insurance situation, to learn more about it, and to get some clarity around the expectations for what we have to do for our fiscal '27 budget presentation, because it was a little foggy last month. There was a couple things I wasn't sure on. So the select board's actually meeting, they may be done, I don't know, but they were meeting tonight on Zoom to take a vote on enacting whatever the chapter is that you have to enact to move forward with changing health insurance plans with the town unions, because they have to work with the unions in the town to decide some things. So they were working on that tonight. And then I asked him to clarify what he wants us to prepare for fiscal '27, and he said that the 2 budget scenarios that he'd like us to prepare are a level service budget, and then a budget that he referred to as a progress budget, but I call it a restoration budget because it's not progress. It's a level service plus adding back
All the stuff we lost.
either all or some of the things that we lost when the override failed in the spring.
Which doesn't
He did indicate that either one of these is still probably going to require an override because our anticipated 2.5% increase in tax revenues isn't going to cover. And if that's across the town, it's not going to cover that. So that's where we are with that. And that's all I have on the chair's report, unless you have any questions. All right, Jen, do you have a Hampshire report?
So we got that presentation, but an hour and a half, almost 2 hours worth of it. Basically the same kind of stuff. The Hampshire Regional.
Enjoy it, you get to hear everything twice.
Yep. At least I wasn't confused this time.
And you know what, we've been there and done that, so we feel you, we feel you.
It's a right.
The Hampshire.
It's a rite of passage.
I literally keep telling people that. I was like, I'm the only one that hadn't done it, so it was my turn.
It wasn't hazing, I swear.
The teachers union up there talked about their concerns for health insurance and that they've met and are, correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, but that they want us to leave the trust.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
and that the MTA has
Yes.
suggested,
Also-
provided guidance
Yes.
around those things.
Correct. So that is the problem only that we have, we have with that is timeline, like that has to be done by December 1st.
Right.
They found that the same payroll issue we had encumbered through the audit, not our audit, but during the Hampshire Regional audit at the moment, that we hadn't encumbered the funds for payroll also happened in FY '23 at Hampshire Regional. And I asked Dawn if that was like happened in a lot of districts, if it just happened in our 2 schools, if there's like a common thread and why this happened. She said she doesn't know. Their school choice fund is not where they thought it was supposed to be. Just basically a lot of sad budget stuff that
All right.
And I think it's
we all
important-
heard.
It's important to understand that the audit presentation
Yes, is on the 20th.
October 20th.
Correct.
And the auditors will talk about
Yes.
those challenges that were faced in '23 that we're still
dealing with.
dealing with. Yeah.
Because those, like this problem will carry through the years coming. Sorry, I could be more cheery.
Okay.
That's good.
PTO met last night. They're heavy into planning for the Holiday Bazaar, formerly known as the Apple Pie Festival. Never let
say
me
it every
go.
time.
I will say it every time. So they're heavily into that. They have, they've been continuing to fund faculty requests for different things. They're doing the Scholastic Book Fair, and they'll do the teacher wish lists again and stuff like that.
For conferences.
Yeah, and they're also, Trunk or Treat is coming up, and if anyone wants to make candy donations, they're a little light on the candy donations right now, so
Oh, yes.
if anybody's
Are we
interested,
really
please.
light on trunks too? Like I was shocked when I saw that.
No, there's
They have a couple
30,
more
they have,
spots.
they had as of
One
last
left?
night, they had 31 sold out of the 32 that they were planning, so,
I think the candy will come in
yeah. But,
this week and next, yeah.
so that's it for that. Margaret's not here to talk about school council. Is there anything to report on school council?
No, I did put out a plea to the teachers because I need a representative or 2 for the school council, and I will be reaching out to the parents soon to see if we can get a couple people to start in November.
Okay. Dylan, is there anything from the collaborative?
Met 2 weeks ago, as far as meeting business went, elected new officers, and I chose a search firm for the purposes of finding a new executive director after a lengthy discussion about that. That's really the only substantive things that happened during the meeting. If anyone wants, I'm happy to forward the executive director notes from the meetings that kind of cover the behind-the-scenes work that's going on. I don't typically do that, but I can absolutely share them. They're public documents.
Okay, well, you can do that, or you can actually, you can send them to me and I can put them in the drive, if you want. And then we won't talk about them, we won't print them. I'll make that clear that that's not a printed thing, but if people want to read them, they can.
The good news is their budget seems to be leveling out after laying off substantial numbers of people, so.
So that's a mixed bag of good news, because the
Yeah.
way they had to do it wasn't so fabulous. Okay. All right, and John's not here, so there's no select board update. We just had Dawn do the the budget and finance team update, but the paper I distributed, because I knew this wouldn't be in the packet, the tuition agreement revolving account. So here's the scoop on this. We have a student that, there's a special education agreement in place for a student from Easthampton to come to Southampton to the neurodiversity program. There's payment for the service. There is the tuition and then a bunch of specialized instruction that comes to a total of $66,973.88. Easthampton will be paying all of those costs. And so in order for the budget to not look like it's out of whack, what we have to do is we have to set up a revolving account that will take all of the payments from Easthampton, put them in the revolving account, and then all of the expenses associated with that student will be charged to the revolving account, so it'll never hit Eliza's budget that will then be out of whack. And this does not require, it doesn't require a vote of town meeting or anything like that. We're allowed to do this. Do you guys have any questions about it?
Is this like a one-time thing or it will stay?
Which includes that paraprofessional position that
Right.
I don't want people to think that that was a new position after. a
Right, so
bunch
you've
of
got the
time.
one-on-one para that you talked
That's
about.
in there,
That's,
yeah.
that's part of it, right, and you did say that in your report.
And this
as
is
well.
1 year only.
The position's 1 year only.
The agreement
Whole agreement's 1 year.
for the student is, well, it doesn't say 1 year only, but it's only 1 year.
And I mean, if it had to extend or whatever, then we deal with it when the time comes.
Right.
But that's for this year, so,
Can
But-
I ask a question?
you can.
Does it make sense if this maybe
Okay.
seems like something we would be doing in the future as well, since we have the neurodiversity program? Are we setting it at just up as just the neurodiversity, like revolving account, so it's not tied specifically to this one student? So we don't have to keep doing it again and again, or is it just set up for this one student?
Well, it's because it's tied to the tuition agreement for this student. So I don't know how many times we'd have to do it.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
we would, but
I
it's not a
gotcha.
hard thing to do either.
Okay.
So what I will say is that if one of you is going to make a motion, there is a typo on this where it says if motion if made by member. It's MGL, it's under Mass General Law, it's section 71F. It's chapter 71.
I make a motion to
Check.
authorize a tuition agreement revolving account pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 71F.
Second.
All right, so Dylan and Jen, is there any other discussion on this? All in favor? Aye, okay, good, that's set. All right, so now we are going on to second reading on policy KCD, the gift to public schools. One of the questions that we had last month was whether we should include any kind of language about anonymous gifts, about like trying to let people make anonymous gifts, that kind of thing. But anyway, I checked with counsel, and she said that basically adding any language about anonymity doesn't actually guarantee anonymity, because there's always a paper trail with a donation of any kind. So she thought it would be muddying the waters to try to be guaranteeing something that we can't guarantee. So she recommended leaving it as is. So that's for that. So there was really not much to this. I don't know if anybody wants to make a motion on this.
Just at all the policies, was Margaret directly involved in drafting these?
Not in KCD. KCD came directly from MASC.
So then I'll move that we approve policy KCD, public is to school.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So then, school admissions, this is another one that really the only change from this is a second read as well. The only change between this and what we had was in the second paragraph, it says will take place in the spring. Our policy had said it will take place in April. I think that was like the biggest change. Everything else is pretty much what we already had.
And this is good, covers us.
Yeah.
So I'll move that we approve policy JF, school admissions.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so now we have a first read on policy EFE. It's a civil rights complaint policy for child nutrition programs. And this goes back to, it's a reference to some other policy that we approved already about charging meals and all that, how the cafeteria handles things. So Margaret did do this, and this also came from MASC. The only change to it is putting that it's the superintendent will, and that's in green, just that language, the superintendent will provide assistance to individuals, et cetera, et cetera. But this is also just a first read.
We don't need motions on first reads, do we?
I don't think we do. We keep saying we accept it as a first read, but I don't think we need to. So there's that one. And then the other first read we have is policy JQ, which is student fees, fines, and charges. And again, this goes back to the other cafeteria policy that we had already approved. This was also referred. So, and all of the work on here was done by Margaret. So if you have any questions, I probably can't answer them, but it's mostly, she also went and, looked at, she went and looked at like updated policy from like MASC. And I think some of this just doesn't apply anymore because of how we do things.
Why is there a reference to Hampshire Regional School District in the final?
Saw that too.
Right, oh, any of you that do the Hampshire Regional, that is not, oh, that should say the Southampton Public Schools, right?
I feel like the Hampshire.
I think the strike-through is just in the wrong spot, maybe?
No, because it's got the new, it's,
Oh, school district, well, it is, well,
we're not in the Hampshire Regional School
We're
District.
own district.
So since John's not here, if we regionalized,
Stop.
there you go! That one's for you, buddy. All right, so it should say Southampton Public Schools, right?
I
we
don't
think?
know, I don't know why Margaret's.
Okay, so, all right, so we'll question that, because this is only a first read, so this is a question for
I also
Margaret.
wonder if we say that, it assumes that if someone's in sixth grade and then they go to seventh,
they're
it
going
goes
to
with them, and I don't
Hampshire.
think
It doesn't.
it can't.
And then above that, graduation exercises.
Right, so I
mean,
think we need to
We
read
gotta
it,
talk
yeah.
about this whole policy. This, to me, reads like a
That's
high
fine.
school policy.
And that's fine, and we can, and that'll be on next month. So, EFE and JQ will be on next month as well. So then the next, what I put here, the last thing under policy was suggestions for future policy discussions. And that is because after our last meeting, we got an email from a member of the public requesting that we do some work on policy around student use of personal electronic devices in school and about social media platforms that are used in instruction and that kind of stuff. And I apologize, I simply did not have time in the interim to do a deep dive on any of this, and I think it's also important for the administration to have a chance to look at the things. What I did do, and I will send this to you guys, but I was literally, I was doing this afternoon, trying to just have some. I did look through our policy manual to see what we do have and what we maybe need to work on. And so what I have found was there's a bunch of policies that are in, they're in our manual, but they'll show the use of technology in instruction policy. Our manual shows a first draft from 1999, and that's all it says. So whether anything was ever adopted, who knows? Access to digital resources. There's a version of it in our policy manual, but again, there's nothing to show that it was ever adopted. Policy on social media. Again, our manual doesn't show that there was anything about that was ever adopted. And then the student use of technology in schools, there's nothing in our policy manual about that. So what I have is I looked at the MASC suggested policies, and I have links to all of those documents in this thing that I made, that you guys don't have. This was just for my notes. Because with the other things that I have going on as chair, I don't know how much time I have to devote to this, and I'm wondering if anybody wants to. I kind of thought you might want to, so I will send you what I have.
I've done research on it. I've actually, before I was on the committee.
Right.
I had gone through and done stuff and gone and looked at other schools' policies and see what in the area and what they had. So, yeah.
So I thought that might be in your wheelhouse, but I didn't want to assume, because, I asked a lot of favors of you tonight.
I'll take this one too.
All right, so I will send you what I have done, and you can go from there. But I think if you want to present anything at our next meeting, two things. I'm going to need to know ahead of time so I can get it posted with the agenda. But second, I think it's probably a good idea for you to have conversation with Eliza or Vito as well. Possibly check what might be in the student handbook, because there may be some stuff in the handbook that we don't have policies. I don't know if there are, because it's been a long time since I had a student at Norris. So I haven't looked at the handbook recently. But so anyway, those would be my suggestions. And then if you have any further questions. Vito has a question.
More of a statement. Today I was at the Safe Schools Summit in Greenfield, and this topic was the topic of the day. And one of the things they talked about was, especially around cell phones and personal electronic use in the schools, was MGL that is in motion around that.
Yep.
And
Bell to bell.
yeah, the bell to bell, exactly. And the different modes that schools are assuming around that. So I think we could probably inform some of the work with what is in process at that level. And I have some things to share that you might be interested in
Yeah.
that were shared today.
Yes.
Great. So that was my suggestion. It was based on citizen request, and so we're going to work on that. Did anybody else have, you saw, I might have seen it on the agenda, did anyone else have anything they wanted to put forward in possible future stuff? You don't have to answer me right now, but if you saw it and had it in your head, I just wanted to give you an opportunity.
No, I did not.
Cameras and facial recognition software?
Okay, Peter. All right, so the next thing is an ADC review and discussion. Now, so here's a scoop. When ADC was, so that's the All Districts Committee for our audience members, 2 members from each of the 5 school committees serve on the All Districts Committee. And it was created not only like 3 or 4 years ago. I think this, well, okay, Williamsburg, Chesterfield, Goshen here. So this is year 4 of it, because I'm counting how many chairs we've had. This is year 4? Yeah. It was created for reasons, which we'll get into in a minute, but part of the agreement says that we're supposed to do a periodic review of if it's working, if it's not, what should we be doing? So part of what we're trying to do with that 5 committees meeting that may never actually happen is talking about it there. And the thought was if we talked about it at our individual meetings first, then we don't have to like hash it out with all 37 people. We can talk together and sort of like present a summary of our thinking at the larger meeting. So Vita had also sent a survey to everybody. I don't know if everyone had a chance to complete that.
I did.
I got it in under the wire this afternoon.
Oh, was it due today?
No, it wasn't necessarily due today. I did it today just because, but it also helped me just think about it. So does anybody have anything that I mean, some of the guided, well, I don't remember the guiding questions anymore. Do you have anything you want to say about it?
I literally have no idea what they do.
Okay.
It is like a phantom, like ghost entity that you guys all get together. I don't know what you decide. I don't know what you talk about. I have no idea. No idea.
And the Google form that I shared.
That was one of the
has a
questions.
link in it that has the agreement so people can see.
The agreement's in your packets too.
And it's in the packet, that's right.
Yeah.
But you can see what the sections of the all districts agreement are, and it can guide some of the responses as necessary throughout the survey.
I would say from my limited knowledge of attending these meetings as a public member and as now on the committee itself, it doesn't seem to be very helpful, like
Yep.
good at getting anything done, producing anything that is useful to anyone.
Okay.
Just.
No, that's fine. I mean, this is why we're talking. That's fine. All right, Dylan, did you have any? All right, so Jen, you know what your thought was. You're going to take a little note maybe on Dylan's thoughts, because you need to be able to present a summary.
I don't think this entire agreement was ever fully finalized or ratified. There was a long and still ongoing discussion the last time this agreement came up about voting weight and whether or not there should be a representative vote or whether there's a Senate style vote, if you will, meaning two votes for this. And additionally, in practice, every time any sort of matter has come forward that said we need to make a decision on something, I think that it has come down now that the ADC is merely an advisory body that can make recommendations, but ultimately any policy decisions, any hiring decisions, any disciplinary actions, any approval of even a superintendent's evaluation, which was the entire creation of this, is ultimately relies with the individual committees because those are elected positions. So we have a committee.
And the law requires.
And the law requires. So we have it, I mean, I understand the purpose of it. I get it from the perspective of, we want to try and not deal with what we're doing right now, which is trying to get all 5 committees to agree to a date.
Right.
And have an advisory body who can get some of the kind of preliminary work out of the way. But when you have a committee that has absolutely 0 teeth, I mean, really, 0 teeth, which is not properly reflected in this document, but in practice, I don't really understand the purpose of it, to be honest with you.
Yes.
Okay. So, I had invited our members who could not be here tonight to share with me their thoughts so I could get them into the record as well, so that at least for our summary, their thoughts would be shared. One did, one didn't. So Margaret sent me an email, and I said that I would read it. Margaret was also, I think, pretty involved in helping with the creation of ADC, so she has some perspective that I want to share with you, and I told her I would read verbatim what she wrote. So, ADC was created to solve some thorny issues faced by the Hampshire Regional School District. Number one, how can non-public information regarding the superintendent be shared between school committees? For example, if one committee has a serious problem with the superintendent that is only shared in executive session with that school committee, is there an appropriate venue to share that information so every school committee is on the same page? This was an actual scenario in which one school committee had a complaint leading to a possible termination or no confidence vote for the superintendent, but none of the other school committees could get that information. Note, legally, this is just dicey all the way around, but the ADC was an attempt to open the conversation. Additionally, what if there is a complaint about the superintendent conduct that crosses school committees? What is the venue for dealing with that? Number two, how does central office equitably inform the entire district about upcoming budget and hiring needs? In the past, central office would come to each school committee individually at budget or hiring time. Thus, one committee at a time heard the information and voted on it, possibly without understanding ramifications to the other towns. By the time the information got to the last school committee, it had already been approved, even if those school committees had outstanding questions. Further, because most committees were focused on the bottom line as it related to their own expenditures, some system-wide anomalies went unnoticed. Number three, how do we equitably involve all schools in selecting and evaluating a superintendent? How do we agree on who should be part of the interview team, what questions should be part of the evaluation process, and what information should be public? Each school committee chair can decide how to handle the evaluation process and what information to make public. For example, one committee can choose to release the overall rankings, another can choose to release rankings with specifics at each sublevel, and another can choose to release comments attached to those rankings. For all practical purposes, the ADC is a recommending body and not a decision-making body. It can't supplant the decisions made by individual school committees, but it can serve as a clearinghouse of information so all committees are on the same page. In practice, that's the next section of the email, because the ADC is not part of any greater charter or agreement, it is not recognized by DESE as a decision-making body. Further, because the chair rotates from year to year, the activities and adherence to the intent may vary wildly. And then her thought about going forward. The question remains, does ADC fulfill its mission? If not, is there another way to achieve its goal of creating commonality in Hampshire Regional School District regarding superintendent hiring, evaluation, and complaints, as well as the central office budget and hiring process and approvals? Going back to the way it was is not sustainable. So that is Margaret's statement on the topic. I will say that I think I've been on ADC like 3 out of the 4 years. And what she says is true, like depending on who's running it, results, you know, what the work you get done and how efficiently it's done, it does vary greatly. And I think one of the other challenges we have is that because there are so many duties listed in the agreement that they're supposedly ADC jobs, they are legally required to be done by all 5 committees. And so the school committees, rightfully, there are members who jump up and down and say ADC can't do anything about that. And there are people who don't even want ADC making recommendations. I mean, that happened when the central office put a tremendous amount of time and effort into a budget presentation for the ADC. And then, okay, thank you very much. And that was it, because like we had people like yelling at us that you can't even make a recommendation. This isn't your job. You're not allowed to do this. Like it was, so there's not, I guess this is a long way of saying there are a lot of committee members who don't buy into the role of ADC. They don't buy into its job, and they're not okay with ADC trying to do the job as listed in the agreement. Right or wrong, I'm just saying like that's a thing, like
No,
there's not a
but
lot to buy.
hearing Margaret's point of view to it makes, like, it, to me, not reading that, more sense of
Right.
why it was created. And
Right,
the
and you
function
need this
that-
you need
and
the
function
context.
it should be providing or
Right.
doing, but clearly, like you said, depending on who's in charge,
Right.
is not.
Right, well, and the other thing too is, I mean, so there could be other ways of handling things, but we really, in my opinion, we do need a way for the 5 districts to be able to handle complaints against the superintendent, whether it's ADC or some other mechanism.
What, are the
Because,
5 chairs not allowed to get together and do it?
but if there's going to be a disciplinary issue with a superintendent, all 5 committees would have to do it.
Well-
If there was going to be a termination of a superintendent, all 5 committees would have to do
But
it.
I just mean for like informational purposes, like, could the 5 chairs get together, voice the concerns, and then you bring them back?
Well, see, the problem is that when a complaint comes,
I'm just curious.
well, there's legal things about how you can discuss them, and sometimes you have to discuss them in executive session, depending on what the complaint is. And the person being complained about also has legal rights about representation and about being there. There's a whole bunch of stuff.
Gotcha.
And, I mean, I know there have been situations where one committee got the complaint, nobody else got the complaint, and you couldn't talk about it with the other people. So eventually the way I know about that is because eventually we could, because there was a legal way to do it, but like there's just a lot. So I think that that's important. And the other thing too with like the superintendent hiring process, and this is what I said in my survey answers, that I think it's largely untested about whether ADC can handle it or not, because last year, the first time we had to use it, we did not start the superintendent search in a timely manner. It was not done when it should have been done. And the result of that was we were behind the 8 ball through the whole thing, so the process wasn't followed. So it's possible that it's a very good procedure, but the person in charge has to actually do it.
Right.
And so and when I say the person in charge, I mean whoever the current chair of the agency.
Why does the chair change every year? Just because?
It's just in the agreement, that's part of the agreement that it would change.
It would change every year.
Yeah.
And so what the agreement actually says is that it's an alphabetical thing. So the first year, the chair was from Williamsburg. So that meant it was Williamsburg first, and then the next one was Chesterfield, Goshen, then Hampshire. This year it's Southampton's turn, and then next year it's Westhampton's turn. So what happens is this year the chair will be from Southampton, and the vice chair is supposed to be from Westhampton because that's the next town coming up to do it. That's how it's set up.
Wait, so are you chair of the EDC too?
Am I? No, well, we haven't had a meeting yet.
Oh, okay.
So it could be Margaret or me. There's nothing, past practice has been that it's the chair of the school committee, but the agreement doesn't say that. It just has to be one of the 2 from the town. So once we actually have a meeting, there'll be a vote. So right now, theoretically, Tom's still the chair because we haven't had a meeting to change it.
I'd really like for Margaret and John to be here for this conversation too, so maybe we can continue it next meeting. Because
Yeah, I mean-
I think there's a lot of issues. And I agree with what Margaret says in what,
Theory.
well, in the very, my vocabulary is really bad. In the light most, in the sense of everyone came to this with good intentions, and the way that this is, could potentially be, and I understand the problems you're trying to solve, but the reality is, I think it's a misunderstanding and slightly a misframing, not intentionally, of how we actually function and what we actually are legally as far as organizations go. To kind of work backwards from what was talked about, we start talking about the superintendent search. No, nothing going on here, Dr. Perrone, but the committee very much felt usurped by 1 or 2 members who brought in the specific search team that they wanted to use and said, basically, we don't even want to do a hire this year. We want to wait 18 months for that to happen. And it was pushing for a very delayed process, a very slow process about interims and long searches. And every time I think a conversation was brought up of push this forward, the consultant that was brought in said, oh, no, we can't possibly do it this quickly. And then it was shut down by the committee at that time. It was incredibly frustrating. I think to the point of sharing complaint information, and the problem that we have with that is, well, we'll go that one, then the budget issues, the second piece of that. But the issue that you have there is that we all want to act like we're 5 families. Like we're one big family with 5 little, we're all cousins. We're not. In the sense, not in the sense of relationships. When we talk about legally organizations, we are 5 separate and distinct organizations with our own legal charters, our own elections, our own representatives, our own budgets, everything. 5 of us.
But we share.
We have a superintendency agreement.
Right.
But the reality is, if the complaint against the superintendent is directly impacting a single organization, I don't believe the other 4 organizations necessarily have a right to have that information. Just in the same sense, if you were a customer, if we're all customers of Microsoft Office, right? We all, just for an example, and you have an issue with Microsoft Word, right, that has something you don't like, the rest of us, even though we all agree to use this one product and we all agree to work with under that license and that thing, do not have the right to access your complaint against that information. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm not saying that we should necessarily follow that, but I think the idea that we all have a right to that information and that we are all one big family is not really accurate.
Except that, but if there's a complaint that is so egregious that it requires
and that needs
disciplinary action.
And that action can be brought before all 5 committees in that procedure by calling an all districts meeting. Not all districts committee, but a five districts meeting.
But that's the thing, like, it didn't, again, I wasn't there when this
No, I understand
started,
that. I'm not arguing with you, but again, I think this is a problem. And then it's the same thing with the budget issue. I mean, we've made massive strides in how central office budget is created and presented. From basically non-existent, buried in the New Hampshire regional budget that just appropriated down to everybody, that was a black box that nobody knew about, to now what I consider to be a very transparent budget that we can understand line by line exactly where the money is getting spent, yet there is still really no vote. I mean, what ends up happening with that whole thing is ADC gets it, Hampshire Regional votes on it, more or less as part of their budget first, and then the rest of us are stuck with it.
But the year that I chaired Hampshire, we actually did have a 5-committee meeting to vote on the central office budget. Because that's the thing, like, it's just like trying to approve this job description. It's getting, so one of the things that I would say is, maybe ADC maybe getting the 5 committees together actually has to be the way to do it.
And
if we can get people to do it.
If we can do it, and I understand it's untenable, but at the same time, we are elected officials. We all signed up for this job. Everyone in every one of these districts, that we are going to represent the constituents and do what we need to do to support the schools, hire and do the things that are in our job descriptions. And I'm not saying, the problem is you have a shortage of volunteers willing to do this work, but ultimately, if people aren't fulfilling the responsibilities of their elected position, they should be recalled. And that's the end of it, or they should not be running for office. And I think it's important that you have elected officials in 1 or 2 or 3 towns who cannot find a single night in 3 months to meet.
There is the gentleman in the audience would wonder if he. Okay, sorry.
Oh, did you have a question? I'm sorry, thank you. I'm like listening.
I do.
Well, okay, so since the dates for November are looking like we're probably not doing that.
Seriously?
Well, I don't know.
We just talked about this.
Peter's like a deer in the headlights. He doesn't want to answer. But what I will say is our next meeting is November 12th.
I will not be here.
I know you won't be here, but we've heard.
Actually?
Well, you said you might, no, it's the 13th, I don't know.
No, we get back in the morning. I should be here that night.
So, but my point was that, to the best of my knowledge, our members that aren't here tonight will be here for that meeting, and I think that meeting will probably happen before this 5-committee meeting comes together. So we can revisit this, and we can hear from Margaret and John if they have anything, if Margaret wants to, say any more about this, or if John wants to, share his thoughts.
arrest warrants for people to be dragged in for failure to appear at scheduled meetings?
I don't think that's how that works.
Okay, anyway, so that's the ADC discussion. Superintendent evaluation, veto. So
Way to follow that up.
Good enough for the Texas legislature.
understand that we were talking about a superintendent. We weren't talking about current superintendent. It was just, it has nothing to, right, because there will be superintendents. There will be a successor to you at some point.
Better not be long.
It's inevitable.
Never.
Inevitable,
You're not
okay.
allowed to retire.
We said that about the last person.
Okay,
I don't
so
think
the,
John did on many accounts.
what I really wanted to talk about was just that the reason, or not the reason, I shouldn't say that, the premise of the work that I do around goals is to really think about what the strategic objectives are for the districts, and then what through lines we can find from them all the way down to individual educator goals, including central office staff, myself, the principals, etc. And so we've had conversations about how we can find those vertical through lines from the strategic plan to those individual goals, make those goals relevant and authentic to the work that we're doing so that the students, the teachers, and the schools benefit from the work that we do as professionals. Based on last year's experience, it's obvious that the goals that I created need to continue because we aren't where we need to be with respect to the fiscal system, the central office, etc. So 3 of the 4 goals that I put forward last year are going to remain intact. The one I am adding is what I really wanted to talk about, and I feel that the focus of my attention as a superintendent last year was on that 20,000 foot level. Per force, it had to be, because of the realities and the challenges and the things that I inherited, and we inherited, I should say. And so one of the things as an instructional leader that I really felt I wasn't able to pay attention to was what was going on in the classroom around the instructional core. And when you think about what that really means, it's teachers, students, and curriculum in a classroom, and what's happening in that classroom. How are students receiving instruction? How are teachers delivering instruction? And is the curriculum fulfilling the purpose of it in the space? So those are the things as a leader that I really want to be part of, but I wasn't able to be part of in the past, last year. And so we have talked about opportunities for us to work together around instructional leadership, get into classrooms, see what's going on, and really try and move us forward in a positive way. The opportunity as we see it is work was done by Michael Fredette last year with 6 through 8 curricula in English language arts. And so a curriculum committee was put together, teachers were a part of it, and there was a decision made on a specific curriculum. That curriculum is now in place. There's been professional development horizontally across the 6th grade level, but also including the 7th and 8th grade. That happened in September. It's going to continue in October. And as an instructional leader, what we want to do is see what's going on with respect to the instructional core and this new curriculum in our schools. So really do the job that ideally we're hired to do, is collaborate together, look at our educators in action with our kids with the curriculum. And so that's really the focus of the new goal from last year.
So how does the goal read? Do you have it there?
I have a draft. Throughout the 25-26 school year, central office and site-based leadership teams will organize and implement an instructional leadership team goal focusing on instructional core learning visits at schools. So that's where it is right now. What's going to happen is that becomes planned activities and evidence and artifacts. So we articulate that, and I'm sure many of you have heard of SMART goals. That's really what we're trying to look at. Again, in my experience, the more authentic and relevant goals are, the more easily they're able to be measured, and the more beneficial it is to not only the individual practitioner, but to the school community.
So will you be doing learning visits, like with the principals, going into classrooms, watching what's going on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I must say, maybe not from a specific educational, like, leadership point, but you were greatly noticed as being a more present figure in the schools in general.
I appreciate that. And that was personally what I want to be, is present. I want to be recognized, you know, so when students know who I am, not necessarily what I do or anything like that, but just that I'm here for a reason.
But even parents have said, I mean, I know the kids see it because my one child could pick you out of a crowd, but parents have even said to me, like, when they've seen you, I know when you came to the 6th grade,
Curriculum night.
well, yes, but no, the 6th grade play that they did last year, the drama club, like, lots of parents were like, oh, like, who's that? Like, I was like, oh, it's a new superintendent. Like, oh, like, that was nice of him to show up. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, that is being seen.
Right.
And I know it's not the specific goal you're talking about, but just...
But that's part of it, you know,
Right.
that's all part of being, making connections, building relationships, and it's not just building relationships with school committee members who I sit with 3 hours a night, you know, when we have meetings.
This is not going to
But
be 3 hours.
I'm with you, but it's with teachers and educators and paraprofessionals and parents and students, and that's what is gratifying about this job, because the other stuff's not so fun.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
It's nice.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. All right, Eliza, I know it's not on the agenda, but you had a field trip you needed.
Field trip request to go out of state. So grade 4 is requesting to go to the Connecticut Science Center on December 5th. During the school day, it won't extend beyond the school day, so they'll leave after everyone has arrived at school, and they'll be back before dismissal.
We
It's
only
going,
have to approve it because it's crossing state lines.
correct.
Okay.
Motion to approve the field trip to the Connecticut Science Center for what grade?
Say that-
Second.
4th grade?
4th grade.
All right, so that's Jen and Dylan seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that is it for the public portion of our meeting. We are going to have a very short executive session. It will be very short, I promise. So, what we need is a motion to enter
Remember what day it was?
executive session according to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, which I do. I do declare. This is Southampton Teachers Association. The motion further should state that the superintendent and the principal are included in the executive session, and we will not return to open session at the conclusion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so Dylan's made the motion, Jen seconded. We need a roll call vote in. Jen?
Johnson, aye.
Dylan?
Maudsley, aye.
And Schott, aye. All right, so we are in executive session, and as soon as I see...